I am going to start our meeting today. Welcome to Virginia Beach Friends of the International Association for Near-Death Studies on this Saturday, June the 7th. I have a number of announcements. We are a nonprofit organization. We have a membership, and it's $30 a year. And then one of the benefits is admission without additional charge to all of our meetings. And I send other benefits too. I'm the only board member here today. Jeff is off fishing where I'd like to be later today. And let's see what else. If you brought a cell phone with you like I did, put it on mute so that we're not disturbing the meeting. Actually, I'll turn it off. Okay, that's good. Our speaker for next month is David Oakford. David had an overdose of drugs with other teenage friends and died. He couldn't figure out how to get out of the house because his hand kept going through the doorknob when he was out of his body. He finally got outside the house and was met by a guide whom he eventually called Bob. But I believe that the guide's name is Zechariah, he learned later. And Zechariah took David on a tour of the universe. He saw a planet in another dimension near our planet. And it's a fascinating story. David wrote up his whole near-death experience in a book, which is available online. It's called soulbared.org, SOULBARED. So I'm going to be sending out the news of David's talk with us next month, but that's good enough for now. We have about 6-7 people here in the room and 5 or so on Zoom, and we're anxious and eager to hear what Mary has to say with us today. And I'm going to put Mary on mute, on pin, so that everybody can see her on the large screen. Go ahead, Mary.
Well, welcome everybody, and nice to be with all of you. And thank you, Dick, for having me on your program again. I had not only spiritual awakening in 1984, but after that in 1988, I had a profound near-death experience. But what really informed the near-death experience was my spiritual awakening, which was very spontaneous. It was in 1984. I am an RN, and I was working at a big Boston hospital at the time. I was also in my 3rd year of massage school. And during this time, I was going through a big life crisis. I had lost all of my money, involved with friends in a real estate deal who betrayed me. And so I lost everything. And I had an 11-year-old daughter to raise. I'd been divorced. And I was in quite a state of mind at this time. And it happened on a day in May in 1984. I was 44 at the time. I'm 81 now. It took me 30 years to write about this. But on that day, I was by myself in the living room, and I was in a very distraught way, having lost everything, wondering how I could support myself, how I could support my daughter, how could I not have gotten a lawyer, and all of this. You know, the mind was just racing and racing and racing. And I was berating myself, feeling like a failure in life. It reached such a point that I started to sob uncontrollably. And I was in so much emotional pain and anxiety that I cried out to a God that I wasn't sure I even believed in. And I said, please, God, just let me die. This is too hard. It's too painful. And in that moment of despair, complete despair, I just gave myself over to despair. All of a sudden, as I'm standing in the living room, there is a window and enters this bright light, this golden light that had a force in it so strong that I couldn't stand up. I had to lay down on the couch. And in that moment, feeling like I couldn't forgive myself, somehow this feeling of forgiveness, self-forgiveness came over me. And as this happened, all of a sudden, the light began to speak to me. Now, I was not in tune with light before. I had no idea about what was happening to me, except that it felt so peaceful and so blissful and so quiet and so reassuring. And all of a sudden, I heard the words, "Now do you understand what true forgiveness is? It's self-forgiveness." And as those words were spoken to me, I had this feeling of self-forgiveness, that there was only one person to forgive, and that was myself for what I had to go through in my life. Very quickly, in hearing this voice, I knew that it was the voice of Jesus. Now, I had been part of the Catholic religion before, but I did not like the dogma. However, I felt that Jesus was beyond dogma and beyond religions. I felt he was a great spiritual teacher. So when he began speaking to me, this is how I felt him. And as he began to speak words about forgiveness, judgment, the Bible, weight and emotions, disease, aging, and then the ego, as he spoke on each of these subjects, he would give me an experience of them in my own life. And all at the same time, he awakened what's known as the chakras system. Now, prior to this awakening of my chakras, I had heard about the chakras, I had heard about the light, but I really didn't know what they were or what this light was. And all of a sudden, as he awakened my energy, all the chakras began to spin. I began to feel all of them spinning around in the body. And later I would realize that I was having a Kundalini awakening. Kundalini is the spiritual energy that we have sitting at the base of our spine, ready to be awakened at a moment. Of course, I knew nothing about this. I come to understand what was happening. And it was so extraordinary. And as he kept awakening these chakras and spinning around, I felt more and more peace, more and more love. It just seemed to flow from me, in me and through me. There were some things when he spoke that really surprised me, especially about the Bible. And when he spoke about the Bible, he said, "Now do you see how they misuse my words in the Bible against each other? I never meant for that to happen." And I felt his great sadness over this. And because I was a registered nurse, because I'd been in the field for a long time in Western medicine, he did speak about disease. And he explained that disease basically started in mind emotions, and it fed into the body, and whatever, let's say, unprocessed situations, griefs or feelings we had in our lives, if they weren't processed out, we would begin to affect our physical bodies and create disturbances there known as diseases. And he said, this is where it all begins, here. And then it feeds into the physical body. He spoke about the ego. And when he spoke about the ego, he explained that the ego is just a case of misidentification, that we think we're a body. We have a body, but we think we are the body. We think we are our jobs. We think we are our labels. We think we are our gender. We think we are our roles. And he goes, that's not who you truly are. Who you truly are is this light that feeds into the body. That's who you truly are. And he explained that the reason that people behave the way they do, in hating other people, in causing divisions, in causing issues with other people, is because from here down, when we're separated from our divine nature, which is here, from here down, when you're living only in this understanding, from here down, you're living in separation from your divine light. And the first thing that happens is here, when you are not living in that space, you begin to experience fear. And then all the feelings that come from fear, which is anger, pride, greed, all of that, you'd feel like you don't have enough, you can't get enough, everybody's taking from you. And so you act out and lash out at others. You create separations with other people. And all of this comes from not understanding who we truly are. I could say that I was suffering in a spiritual amnesia prior to being awakened by Jesus. I mean, he actually awakened my Kundalini experience. And then I would come to know that there was a word for that, and it was called Shaktipat, which means the descent of grace, to awaken you to your true nature. As I was going through all of this, I was processing all of it. And the more I processed all of it, the more love I felt, the more released I felt, the more peace I felt, the more comfort I felt from his presence and his words. This went on for quite some time. I can't even tell you how long. But just before when he finished telling me about all these revelations, I'll call them, but just before he left through the window again, he removed a block in right here, what I came to know as my third eye, or it's an awakening to soul. And I felt him remove this veil, which flooded in even more of the light inside me and the love inside me. And then he just withdrew his energy through the window. And in my amazement, I got up from the couch thinking I need to get some fresh air. What just happened to me? Yet, I wasn't afraid. I felt, yes, I had forgotten this. This is the truth. It felt so familiar to me, even though I had no idea prior to this about the light and really about the chakras. I thought, this sounds familiar. And it feels like the truth. And I went to the backyard to open the door to get some fresh air. And when I did, I was shocked at what I saw, because what I saw were these little packets of light covering the trees, everything outside, all of nature. And these packets of light were alive, pulsating with divinity and energy and knowledge and all being. And I realized, oh my gosh, that's the light that is behind all creation on this planet, in us and in all of nature and everything. And it's divine in nature. There was so much love in it that I cried out and said, oh my God, this is paradise, meaning earth. But we've made it into something else. We've made it into a living hell for each other through our hatred, separation, blaming other people, hurting other people. And I started to sob all over again, all at the same time, all while feeling all of this love. Now, mind you, I had to go to work the next day. So what happened to me? How did I process this? My first thought when all of this was happening was, I need to find a living master to help me process what happened to me. I really want to understand it. And of course, with my more scientific mind, I thought, this reminds me of Einstein's theory of relativity. Energy equals mass times light. So I thought, maybe if I could find somebody who understood that from my experience, I could understand what happened to me, because it felt like the most important thing that ever could happen to a human being. And why did no one ever talk about this? I never heard about this. Why aren't people talking about the light? And so I also wanted to find somebody, for some reason, who had a clear pair of eyes an absolute clear pair of eyes. So those were the two things that were forefront in my mind. As I asked to find, I made a request of the universe to find a spiritual teacher. But the next day I had to go back to work. So what state of mind was I in? I was flowing with love. I mean, I loved everything. I was love. I was love, walking love. It was just the most, and it was unfettered love. It wasn't a transactional love. I give you love, you give me love. I was love because my nature was love and my nature was light. So I went to the hospital trying to go back to my job, which was in research administration. And I was supposed to work with numbers, in grants and money. And as I sat down at my desk, I was just this big ocean of love. And I couldn't make sense of the numbers that seemed so unimportant. And I'm trying to focus on the numbers and doing my job. And I couldn't. I was just oozing in love. Like I loved everybody and everything. And all I wanted to do was to be like Eckhart Tolle, who had his awakening and wanted to sit. He got to sit on a bench, by a river for 2 weeks. And I couldn't do that, although that's all I wanted to do was to sit and watch the world go by, watch this play go by. And as I was ruminating about all of this, eventually the director realized I wasn't functioning and that something happened to me. She called it love, which I was surprised. Oh, love has happened to Mary, but she didn't realize what this love was in actuality. And eventually she just reorganized the office so that I could leave with a little pay, which was very kind of her. And I was still going to massage school in my 3rd year, and I had very strange reactions from people at the massage school because here I am trying to find a teacher, a living teacher, and I would go to different events and hear different people speak. And I'm like, no, that's not right. That's not the one. And one day I saw an advertisement for energy medicine. There would be a panel of speakers who would speak about energy medicine. And I thought, yes, energy. I need to go to that. I'll go to that. So I went to this place called Interface in Watertown, Massachusetts, which is now defunct. And there, the whole auditorium was filled, and there were 7 speakers. And they each got up and spoke. One was a doctor who studied acupuncture, and they each spoke about their energy system. And there was the very last speaker. He stood up. He did not introduce his name first, like everybody else. All he said was, E equals mc squared, Einstein's theory of relativity. And I thought, that's the one that I need to speak with. And he went on to explain the light within and how an energy worker, he worked with his breath to help clear energy. And I thought, that's the one. So afterwards, I ran over to him, grabbed his arm and said, I have to see you. And I made an appointment with him. I walked into his office that day, the appointment. He was in the room and he excused himself for a moment. And I noticed that there was a picture on his wall of what looked like a woman, just the headshot. And I thought maybe this was a monk. So I walked over to the picture. I looked into the picture, into the eyes of the monk in the picture. And I thought, those are the eyes I'm looking for. That is the teacher. And as I had that thought, and this may sound strange, but when it happens to you, it feels so normal. The picture came alive. And she spoke to me. And she said, we're coming together again to complete something. And as she spoke this word, she showed me a movie strip of how I'd been a monk of hers in a past life. And that somehow there was a separation, political reasons maybe, a separation, so that I couldn't complete the journey with this monk. And as I'm staring at the picture, having this experience, the healer walks back into the room And I'm still staring at the picture and I go, is that a monk? And he goes, yes. And I said, is she alive? Meaning on the planet. And he goes, yes, she'll be in Boston in 2 weeks. You want to meet her? And I thought, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And what I didn't realize in looking to her eyes was that, again, I had some type of a spiritual awakening just by being in her presence. And so when I laid on the table to have the energy treatment with him using his breath, once again, I experienced this light pouring through me, out my hands, out my feet like rays of light. And I saw all the meridians inside me light up, the meridians that acupuncturists talk about. And I thought, oh my gosh, those are real. These are channels of light. We are channels of light. Then I thought, oh, I remember seeing pictures of Jesus with light coming out of his hands and out of his feet, pictures of Mary as well. And I thought, oh, this is the light that heals. This is the light in them. And I thought, this is the light in me? I couldn't quite figure it out. I couldn't quite put it all together. And what was supposed to be an hour-long healing session turned into 6 hours of the most amazing, again, experiences of the light and the peace as I released so much of my grief, but not only grief from this lifetime, but grief from other lifetimes, it seemed. And one of the things that the healer said to me, not knowing that I had given up a child for adoption when I was 19, this was the 60s, this was expected of you. There were no single mothers back then. There were only women who had to give up their babies. They said for the good of the child. And that you were, basically shamed to death if you didn't. And he said to me, I'm hearing your child speak to me. And she said that she has a spiritual connection with you, that she loves you, and that you were never separated from her. So you can know that all is well between both of you. And so, of course, we both sobbed. I cried, he cried. It seemed like the most healing thing I've ever been through. So what happened after that? After that, I met the teacher. I went to the meditation center to meet this teacher. And when I saw her, I had that same feeling come over me of the kind of love and light that I received from the light meeting with Jesus. And much to my amazement, as she sat down and spoke, she spoke about the ego. And she said the same thing that Jesus said. It was an identical almost talk. And I'm thinking, these spiritual teachers who are enlightened, fully enlightened, are speaking the same message. And it's the message that we have light and divinity within us, and to awaken to that within us. Now, this was 1986 now. It took 2 years before I would meet this monk. I decided that she was indeed the teacher that I had prayed for, a living teacher. Interestingly enough, shortly thereafter, I had a dream. So I would meet Jesus 3 times. One as the light in 1984, one in a dream, and then one in a vision. In the dream, I went to some place in the realm of heaven. We call it heaven. Some place in this realm where there were people sitting, meditating, all dressed in white, all sitting, meditating, all in white robes over their heads, so you couldn't tell man or woman, you couldn't tell. And in the middle of them was this old man with a big white beard. And he put his hand down like, here's your place. And I went to sit down amongst these people meditating. And as I went to do that, this beam of light came to my heart, and I followed the beam, and I looked up, and there was Jesus sitting on sort of like on a platform, dressed in white. There were young, what's known as darshan girls, all in white, around him, like almost like angels they look like, but like young girls. And I walked up to him, I knelt in front of him, and I was mad. And I said to him, you promised me, where have you been? You promised me fulfillment. And he looked at me with such love, not saying a word, just emanating so much love that it melted my heart. And as this happened, his face turned into the face of the monk that I had just met. And I thought, oh, that's the one that where I will find that fulfillment that he promised me a long, long time ago. So I went to study with this teacher. That was in 1988. When I went to study, I also received another awakening of the Kundalini energy from this teacher. And there's this one day, this is where the vision of Jesus comes in now. I was sitting outside in a meditation center by myself under a big pine tree. I just finished lunch outside in an Adirondack chair. And all of a sudden, this realm of light came over me, entered me, except this time more forcefully than ever before. And as that happened, the Kundalini again got awakened within me. And now it started to roll up my life story as Mary, this separative life story as this identity to Mary. And it rolled up and rolled up until it reached here where there was permission to go higher. And as it went higher, the light of 1,000 suns lit up my being. And the words were, I am that I am. I am that I am. And as I heard those words, I looked out over this building, and there was Jesus rising in a cloud with his hands like this in his robes, rising up in a cloud. And I thought, am I rising too? And I thought, yes, you're rising up in you to your divine nature. And as he did, he just went up and up and up, and then he disappeared into the clouds. And I wondered why he showed up at a meditation center when this was a monk, from India. But I realized it's all the same. There are no divisions in so-called heaven. There are no religious divisions. It's just all light. It's all this divine light that we truly are. And books can point to it. Teachers can point to it. But unless you have the full experience of it, you cannot believe that this lives within humanity, waiting to be awakened, to live beyond this separative, small ego identification. It changed me forever. I mean, all these experiences changed me forever. How I looked at myself, how I looked at other people. And this unfolded in me more and more. And as I looked out after Jesus disappeared into the clouds, as I looked out, I saw people walking by, other meditators, and I saw their souls hovering over them, and then like little Christmas lights falling down. And I thought, look, there is your soul. Can't you see it? But I also thought they were caught in their minds, caught in this experience, and they couldn't see this. I wanted to say something, but I knew I couldn't. I knew I couldn't speak, that it wouldn't matter what I said, because you can't tell somebody. They have to have their own experience. Interestingly enough, I mean, I went through many things happened to me during that really supreme experience. that I write about in my book, by the way. I wrote this book Out of the Blue. It's on Amazon. You can get it from my website, maryterhune.com. And in it, I have described the experience with Jesus more, and each thing that he spoke to me. I describe in detail my death experience, in detail this experience of self-realization. We call it self-realization, but it's realizing you are the divine nature. And I write about it in detail in the book. I couldn't possibly get into all the detail now. I'm trying to give you a big, broader view of things. But it's maryterhune.com, and you can get it on Amazon. Hopefully in a few months it'll be on audio, but right now it's on Kindle and in a book. So amazingly enough, I had signed up to do dishes because that's one of the things you do when you're at a spiritual retreat. You also participate. And so I had to go to the dish room, and here I am in all my glory as divine nature, feeling at one with everything, everyone, and knowing this was our true nature and not living in the separative, hellish nature, feeling small and self-deprecating in the egoic structure, which much of humanity has been caught in and is waking up finally from their spiritual amnesia. This is July of 1988. This happened on the 4th of July. Freedom, true freedom. Went to the dish room in this magnificent, omniscient state that I knew was the true state of humanity. For sure. Absolutely. Guaranteed. And as I stood before the soap dishes in a room where there was loud clunking of dishes and the machine was flying and steam was flying everywhere, there were people on the other side also washing dishes. And I looked up, and this woman had looked up at the same time, and she stared into my eyes and she broke out sobbing. And I realized that this state that I was in ignited the state in her of this love that is so deep and so profound and so who we are. And I realized she experienced the same thing. And when you're around teachers, I don't consider myself so much a teacher as an experiencer. When you're around the great ones who hold this state, you cannot help but be affected by it because it reminds you of who you truly are. That's the whole point of teachers. You know, that's why they call these teachers, sometimes they call them gurus. And guru means to come from the darkness to the light. It's to awaken you to this light. And my experience certainly of Jesus was that he was a guru, a Shaktipat guru, somebody who was beyond religion. And for me, at least in my feeling, when those missing years, I felt he was in India and receiving his awakening to become the most glorious, one of the most glorious spiritual teachers ever to be on this planet. There have been others as well, but they're not as recognized because Jesus was basically captured in a religion, right? And then used to the religion is used to separate. Yeah, we're going to heaven, but you're going to hell. No, that's not true. None of that. It's nonsense. You can have a religion, but don't use it as a weapon of separation. Use it as something that can enlighten you to your own divine nature. Shortly after doing the dishes, still in this state, I left the dish room. And what happened afterwards was for me the most painful thing I've ever experienced. I felt the energy that was my true state now had to go back down into this world of division. And I was in agony, absolute spiritual agony, that I had to go from that natural state back into this separated, egoic separation from my true divinity. And the first feeling I felt was fear. Fear, the basis of all the hate. Fear, the basis of everything. We fear each other. And because of that fear, we blame other people for our own suffering. But let me tell you, the basic and truest suffering is being divided from this incredible natural state. That was in 1988, in July. In October of 1988, I would have an experience of death, which was quite extraordinary. Now, I was working at MIT in the Space Center, perfect space for me. And I was a manager of the new office for the Center for Theoretical Geocosmoplasma Physics, as they study the universe and the energies, the magnetosphere and the energies in the universe from a physical or scientific point of view. Meanwhile, I'm experiencing it from the spiritual point of view. And I worked there for 16 years at MIT. I started meditating every lunchtime. I would take some meditation. I would have my lunch and then I would meditate usually for 20 minutes. It was October. It was cold outside. I always meditated outside in the courtyard, but I had to go inside now. So I chose a spot in the electrical engineering building of MIT, Building 9, which looks out onto Mass Ave. It has these gigantic glass windows. As I'm sitting on the bench, having my lunch, and I'm looking at a book, reading about a spiritual teacher, another spiritual teacher who was also enlightened. And I was reading about people's experiences with him. And as I'm reading about it, I go, oh, well, that's too bad. I won't meet him because he's on the other side. So that's just how it is. So I put the book down and I closed my eyes to meditate for a while. Now, this particular area of the building, it was a building that had access to it through a revolving door. And the students would come across the street from Massachusetts Avenue, go through the building through the revolving door, and pass through the building to other buildings on the other side. So it was a big pass through. And as I was meditating, I heard someone say to me, "Are you ready?" And I thought, oh, that's just the student, fooling around with me. I'm meditating, so they're just making fun. So I just ignored them. My eyes still closed. I hear, "Are you ready?" And then I realized, wait a minute. With my eyes still closed, to the left was this monk, the one I was reading about in the book, dressed in orange. And I thought, oh my God, I'm having this vision with my eyes closed. I've read about people having visions, but I can't quite believe that this is true. But here it was. Oh my gosh, it's real. And as he walked away from me towards the windows, towards Mass Ave, and then he turned around and he walked to me. And when he got very close, he turned into the Milky Way energy. Now, this may sound strange, but I want to tell you, when it happens to you, it feels like the most familiar thing that could ever happen. I was never afraid. Turned into this Milky Way and entered through my solar plexus. And when that energy entered through my solar plexus, I heard all these divine sounds, what I came to know as nadis. All these divine sounds, a bell, bells ringing, conchas blowing, the sound of a tornado, wind just swirling around. It was so powerful. And this energy came up and it took my energy with it. And I realized at some point as it reached here, it was so loud, I thought my eardrums were going to burst. And I realized in that moment, I'm going to die. This is dying. But I wasn't afraid. And I heard this monk say to me, "Don't worry, it's fine." I go, "Okay, it's fine." So I just went with it and whoosh, out of the body I went. All of a sudden, I'm standing in front of these two windows of light, the most powerful, powerful light, and like a magnet of love pulling me towards it. And I wanted to go to it. I wanted to go to this light. And I knew if I went to this light, I wouldn't go back to where I was. But there was this little voice I heard that said, "But what about your daughter?" And I thought, oh, she'll be fine. It's okay. I so much wanted to go to this light. And what appeared was this teacher again, but in a light body. And I was in my light body. And as I went to go to the light, he touches me, his energy touches me. He goes, not yet. And I thought, oh no, I have to go back to wherever I was. I don't want to go back. I want to go to the light. That's my home, light. I want to go to light. But nope, I had to go back. And I wondered, now, how am I going to get back to wherever I was? Mind you, I had no sense that I had a body or a gender or a real life. I was just pure light at this point. And I looked down and I saw this little light. It's like this little light that was attached to my solar plexus. And it was this thin light. They call it the silver cord. And I'd read about that from Shirley MacLaine and Out of the Blue. She had an experience of that light when she was meditating, and it pulled her. She went out of her body with it, but she was afraid, and so she went right back to her body. But I wasn't afraid. I was just following what I knew were the orders that I had to go back. So I had to focus on this light, this silver cord, and it was just went on forever, and it floated in the air. And as I turned, all I could see was darkness as I followed this cord. And then all of a sudden, the vista opened, and I saw our solar energy system, all the planets. And I went zooming. It's like zooming, like Zoom, like when you go on Zoom and you go to look at directions, whoosh, like that. And I passed planets, past Jupiter and Saturn, and went zooming past. And I wonder what planet I'm going to. And all of a sudden, there was Earth. And I realized, oh, I'm going to the planet Earth. And as I got closer to the Earth, I saw I was going to North America. And I zoomed down. And then I was going to Massachusetts. Oh, okay. So then I zoomed down, and all of a sudden, there I was in the building of the engineering building at MIT, in the ceiling, looking down. Mind you, the monk was traveling with me. I looked down, and there was a body meditating on a bench. And I thought, oh, that's the body I have to go back to. I didn't know if I was a man or a woman. I didn't really have any connection with that body. I just called it, oh, that's the body I have to go back to. And the way it happened was I just followed the cord and I went through the top of the body. And as my soul or my consciousness entered the body, it jolted. And I went, oh, I felt like I was shoved into a tight shoe. And I was not happy. I did not want to be back in a body. And along with the body came the mind and whatever issues that were in this body that I had to deal with in life. And I thought, how am I going to do this? I really don't want to have to deal with these things. And I thought, this is absolutely awful. And as I had that thought, my eyes were still closed. And all of a sudden, the monk appears again. And he goes, you see, the veil is very thin between here and there. Very thin. He disappears. I'm left sitting with my eyes closed with all this racket that was going on. And I thought, people must be standing around me wondering what is going on with this woman. But when I opened my eyes, there was nobody there. Nobody was around. And I thought, wait a minute. I left a body and I was alive as myself, as consciousness. I could see, think, speak telepathically, move anywhere I wanted to. Oh, you can't die. We're eternal beings. Oh my gosh. There is no such thing as death. The body just drops because the energy that's giving it life has left. It's left the vehicle. And I thought, wait a minute. If you can't die, then how could you have the opposite we call birth? I thought, oh my God, there is no such thing as birth, so to speak. There's only life. So there is no death. There is no birth. The whole thing's an illusion. Oh my gosh. The most important thing I realized was my state of mind as I'm living in this body, living on this earth, interacting with myself and with others, that was the thing, that was the most important thing. And to claim this and so for me, the fear of death died on that day. I have no fear of death. There is no such thing. We're eternal beings. And we come and go in these vehicles and use these vehicles for the different experiences for whatever reason. I can't really tell you the reason. People have a lot of theories about how we end up here on this earth in this body with all these issues and these reasons. I don't know, but I do know the truth that we are this divine being in this body and that we are all one ocean of divine consciousness. We are all connected all the time with everybody and everything on this planet. We just may not be aware of it. That's all. And that's why they call it waking up or having an awakening, moving out of spiritual amnesia into our experience, not book teachings, our experience of our divine nature, claiming it, reclaiming it as our very own. So these changes as humanity is awakening, and I'm seeing more and more of that, people questioning everything, people questioning all these teachings and wanting to have it and having experiences of their own. I'm certainly not the only one. Mine are very dramatic, yes. Most for people it happens more slowly, but for whatever reason, because I think probably I was a monk or a nun in many lives past, it all seemed very familiar to me. So I was never afraid of any of this, any of the awakening. I claimed it as my very own because it is my very own and it's everybody's. We're not separate. We are not separate. We are one consciousness, living, gigantic consciousness, creating, that's behind the creation of the entire planet, beyond religion, beyond division. Divisions are used to control each other and to hate each other. Give up your divisions. Reclaim your true divinity, the love, the unfettered love that you are, your divinity that you truly are. Absolutely 100% guaranteed. And when you experience it yourself in its total fullness, you know it. You have it. It's true. And then you have to live it. Live it when you open the door for somebody. Live it when you say a good morning to somebody with a smile. Live it on the roads, driving your car. Let the person go in traffic. You have to live these things, and the small things of life are the most important things in life. How you speak to each other with kindness. The small things. It's in the details of life. Divinity is in the small details of life. And if you can't be trusted with those small details of life, how do you expect to open up to this magnificence that we truly are? And that's what I learned. I had to apply this to my life. And every day I do it. It's 30 plus years later. It took me 30 years to write the first book, which was a very small one. Another many years to write another follow-up. And then finally, the final version where I include everything I could possibly include, which wasn't in the other ones. So I speak about a lot of different things that people might find controversial, but they're only controversial when you don't understand that you are the consciousness, the living consciousness. So I write about consciousness-based medicine and how it's our consciousness that we have to focus on and release traumas in that way. And that's when 14 years after and this was what Jesus was talking about, but at that time I didn't know about consciousness-based medicine. As a nurse, I would come to find consciousness-based medicine like 14 years later when I had a health problem with my thyroid and I took a drug for it like they wanted to give me, and I became very sick from the drug, knowing that I had to find another way. And by then I knew that emotions were stuck somehow here in my throat. and causing a dysfunction, therefore, as symptoms. And so again, I said a prayer. I prayed to find me a healer who can not only explain what this is about, but I needed to find something to cure it. Again, you can ask with all your heart what you want, and the door will be opened. It will happen eventually. So as I said that prayer, the very next day, I went to work and I mentioned this to a colleague of mine. I'm having trouble with my thyroid, the drugs, I'm sick from them. I have to find another way. And she turns around and hands me a flyer. Oh, then you're going to need homeopathic medicine. I go, what's that? And I saw that there was a nurse who practiced homeopathic medicine in the next town. I made an appointment immediately with her. She took my case. It took about an hour and a half to 2 hours, where she took my entire case, asking me questions that no doctor ever asked me. Like, do you have any specific dreams a recurrent dream that you have? What do people complain about in you? She would ask these different questions. I thought, this is very fascinating, because she was treating me, the person, not the disease. I realized she was treating me with whatever mental, emotional state I'm functioning in, and not the thyroid, which has been affected by all of this. And I could go on and on talking about this. I want to give you a chance to ask questions, but basically what it came down to, as we looked at my history, she had me fill out a timeline before I saw her of all the never well since events in my life that I found difficult and my reaction to them. And it could be anything. It could be after my dog died, I was never happy. After I moved, I was never feeling right. After I took that drug, I got very sick. Many different things. After I got married, I wasn't well. After I got divorced, I wasn't well. It could be anything in your life. And she said, even ask your mother if anything happened in utero to her while she was pregnant with you. Thankfully, at that time, my mother was still alive. So I called her and I said, Mom, did anything significant happen to you when you were pregnant with me? And she goes, yes, as a matter of fact, when I was 8 months pregnant with you, my mother, who I was very attached to, died. And I went into a deep depression, deep, deep grief. And I could barely function when you were born. I had to have someone take care of you, help me with you. Right there and then, that grief was layered on me in utero. So when I looked at my never well since events, they were all connected with grief events over relationships that should have been nurturing, but that were cut off. And I realized I had had this thread of grief throughout my entire life, and which was stuck here in my throat, unable to be expressed. When the homeopathic nurse, gave me the remedy for this, the specific remedy that addressed that state of mind, that grief in this particular way, I put 1 teaspoon in my mouth. I was standing at the sink, and as I did, my whole energy left the cosmos. I left my body into the cosmos again, into this dark cosmos. And I saw this little twinkling light, this little star coming this way. And I went, oh, that's where my energy is stuck. And then I saw another twinkling little light that matched it. Oh, that's the remedy. And when the two of them came together, they exploded. I went flying back into my body and I went, oh my God, like cures like. It's all in consciousness. That's consciousness-based medicine. And I understood immediately how homeopathy worked. And immediately that we in the medical field only look at the physical body from the 3D material world. We don't even look at consciousness. We don't recognize consciousness as the living force that gives life to this body and the entire consciousness. And I realized I have to study this. I realized the importance of it, not just for myself, but for my family. But I didn't realize it would involve the rest of the world as well. And I called up the nurse homeopath and I said, I have to study this. This is what happened to me. And she goes, well, you're in luck. In September, there's this great homeopathic teacher, a doctor, medical doctor, Dr. Luke DeShepper, who will be in Boston for 3 years. You want to study with him? And I thought, there it is again. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. So I studied with Dr. Luke DeShepper, who since has passed this past January. May he rest in peace. I'm sure he is. And I became a homeopath. And I'm so grateful for it because that's what brought my thyroid back into correct functioning. So, and it helped to release years and years and layers of grief, not only from this lifetime, I'm sure, but from other lifetimes as well. And that's sort of processing out this inherited ancestral stuff that we all have. We all have. And then I realized, yes, we do need trauma medicine, but we need homeopathic medicine restored back into our US medical system, which it once was, once upon a time. It was part of our medical system, but Rockefeller removed it so that it wouldn't compete with his synthetic petrochemical drugs. So he got rid of it in spite of the fact he had 2 homeopathic physicians treating himself and his family, but not for the rest of us. He got rid of it, took it out of our schools, out of our hospitals, out of our doctor's offices, and we were left with what? Drugs and all their side effects. And we threw out the preventative portion of our system of medicine. And it's time to reclaim it. It's time to reclaim it. It's the truth and it's powerful. Yes, we need both. And you have to have the wisdom and the knowledge to when to use what. I would say try homeopathy first. First, can always resort to this later. So this is my message. There's so much more I could say, but I've talked for about an hour. I've said a lot of things. I haven't said everything, but I've said a lot of things. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Right, I'm going to put it back on the gallery so that everybody can be seen all together. See, here's the gallery. And we want to open the meeting to any questions. And let's start with persons in the gallery first. Is there anybody on Zoom who has a question or a comment? Well, while you're formulating your questions, let's see if anybody in the room has a question or a comment.
Yeah, you can share your own experiences too, you know.
Okay, and what I'd like you to do is come and sit in a chair up front so everybody on Zoom can see and hear you when you have a question. And I'm going to move the camera in front of you. I'm giving you the first chance to ask questions because I have several.
Then you should go first. Yeah, go for it, Dick. Lead the way.
All right, I notice, Mary, that this all began in a time of distress and you asked. And
Yes.
how many times we have heard recently that asking is the key. If we don't ask, Heavenly Host respects our privacy and our autonomy. So you ask.
Yes.
Yeah. I was so glad you spoke. I think you said you received on 7 subjects. You told us about a number of them: the Bible, disease, the ego. What other subjects did you speak about other subjects today?
He spoke about, I didn't speak about all the 7 that he spoke to me about. I mean, briefly about forgiveness. He spoke about judgment, which was very interesting. Because we are all one consciousness, when you judge out there, you're really judging, it comes back at you because you're judging yourself essentially. And I spoke about weight and emotions. He spoke about weight and emotions, and that weight is basically the suitcases of emotions you carry with you. And that can affect your physical form, not only as disease states, but also weight, the weight of the emotions, which can affect the way the body functions. And so it can appear as carrying a lot of weight to it. So it can affect you that way too.
All right.
And I also speak about that specifically because when all that light was pouring through me in love, there was this light it's called Amrita. Something got released up here. It's like this sweetness in the light, and it sort of dripped down like honey. And so I was like eating this sweetness, and I felt so full in spirit that I needed very, very little food. And I dropped down from, I was small anyway. I dropped from 118 to 100 pounds, but I was feeling so healthy and so filled with this sweetness of light that I didn't require much food. Yeah. Of course, that changed over time, but
All right. I appreciate,
Joanne has a question.
Joanne has a question. You'll have to unmute Joanne because we can't hear you while you're muted.
Yes, well, I have used a lot of different creams for pain and stuff, homeopathic, for many years. Now, is it more important for me to try the mental ways of learning all of this that you've learned? Or is it all right to just depend on, say, an acupuncturist or a doctor that uses homeopathic remedies? Do you have to have that mental thing?
well, everything is mental. We can't
Yeah.
escape it. It was, it's all part of one system. We're not parts. This part is this one, this part. No, we're all one mental, emotional, spiritual, physical being. And so homeopathy has to treat all of that. And the most important thing is the mental state of the person. What is that state that kind of drives them? For me, it was the state of grief that I didn't realize was driving me. You see, that had to be addressed. That's number one. The mental emotionals, it's the mental emotionals that is the most important thing. And that's why to see a homeopathic practitioner, one who just, that's their focus, homeopathic medicine is their one focus. Because sometimes, acupuncturists will use homeopathy, but they're not real professionally trained homeopaths, because you could study homeopathic medicine for 30 years and still not know the bottom of it. It's that amazing and powerful. So you really have to get into it. You can't just, drop a remedy here and drop a remedy there. This takes, if you see a homeopathic practitioner for chronic issues, they'll take your case for about an hour and a half to 2 hours and ask you many questions. And let's see, someone's asking me a question on this. Cheryl, I'll get back to you. So you need to, really delve into it with a homeopathic practitioner, someone who that's their practice. Because many other people will kind of throw remedies at you, like almost like they're M&Ms, and they'll treat it sort of on a very sort of a Western medicine kind of point of view. Oh, for that symptom, I'll give this drug for that, without taking into account the depth that it takes to really understand the person, because you're not treating the disease, you're treating the person who has symptoms. So it's always about the symptom picture. What is this? The symptom picture is the blueprint for the remedy that you need at this moment. And to find that symptom picture and to really see it, and then to match it to the appropriate remedy from nature that's a living consciousness that will hold that symptom picture. These plants and remedies hold a certain symptom picture. So the element that held the symptom picture for me was Nat Mure, Natrum muriaticum, homeopathic remedy made from table salt. But because it's so highly diluted and triturated, it makes the remedy dynamic. It becomes dynamic. And therefore, it can react at a consciousness-based level, so that the consciousness of the human and the consciousness of the remedy has to match. And when it matches, boom, like cures like, it explodes it like that. Boom, it breaks up wherever the trauma has been stuck in your life. And everybody suffers from trauma, mental, emotional anxieties, all kinds of stuff. So that's the profound nature of homeopathic medicine. It really gets to the root of our issues. Now, does it work 100% all the time for everybody? Nothing works 100% all the time for everybody, but it can be very, very helpful in supporting your entire being to help release on that level, which is completely ignored by Western medicine. I know I lived and worked in Western medicine for many, many years before realizing this, but I always felt like we were putting Band-Aids on problems. So I was never very happy in it. But when I found homeopathic medicine, and not only that, but it was part of our medical system. It was taught by our medical doctors in hospitals and, medical systems. So this is what we have. This is what is going to be reclaimed as we reclaim our consciousness. We're going to reclaim our consciousness-based medicine, not just the Western medicine material stuff, because it brings a balance. You have to have this balance. You need both, or it's going to be lopsided. You can't have just this and not this. You got to have both. And this is what has to be restored to us. But, I've been talking about this for 30 years now. And people are just starting to wake up to the possibility there might be this preventative system that, but mind you, the only doctor that has a monument to him in Washington, D.C. is a monument to Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, the father of homeopathic medicine, dedicated by President McKinley in 1900. Only one dedicated to a medical doctor as the great reformer of the medical system. That's why Rockefeller had to get rid of him, get rid of the teachings, get rid of all of that. But the monument stands still at Scott Circle, 1.5 miles from the White House. That monument still stands, but everything that he taught was discarded by Rockefeller because they wanted it for themselves. The greed, again, the greed in this world is driving us to destruction, not only of us physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but, in the material world, when none of that is needed. There is plenty of food, medicine, housing, everything that we need to everyone on this planet to live a good life, but it's controlled with fear and division and making you feel small. So I've gone way beyond your question, but at any rate, it's all related. It's all this one thing, you see, it's all this one thing.
Well,
Did
it's
I answer your
almost
question?
discouraging, actually. It makes it very difficult for us to know the right avenue to take and to find for the right person to put you together again.
Yes, I
So-
agree with you. That's why it took me a long time to write about all of this, not knowing, should I share this? Am I supposed to share it? I had to process things in myself first, heal thyself. If you're going to talk about this, you better know it and you better study it before you say a word to anybody else. All the doctors that were homeopaths proved every remedy on themselves first before they ever gave it to someone who was sick. They took these remedies themselves, these doctors, to prove the symptom picture of it. Of course, it was all energetic. So they stopped it and then the symptoms went away. But they proved it on themselves. Did you ever meet a doctor who told you to take a drug who took it on himself first before he gave it to you? Not one.
Oh,
Not one. No. They wouldn't think of it because they know the inserts. They know what it's doing. But they're paid. And fortunately, I'm so discouraged by so many in the medical field who would just refuse to educate themselves beyond the material level. There's this physicist at MIT, Max Tegmark, who wants to study consciousness as the fourth state of matter. Of course, he's made fun of, but this is how deep it is, I mean, but what's happening is that the people are waking up through their own experiences and now are calling forth and say, wait a minute, there's something not right here. We need something else to balance this out. Homeopathic medicine became popular in the United States because it was the first system that addressed, cured, prevented all communicable diseases, all of them. There's a history there, and it's completely suppressed. People have no idea, and I wouldn't have had any idea too, unless I studied with Dr. Shepard for many, many years. And if you look at the history, it's all there. All the history of all the doctors who cured and prevented these communicable diseases here in the United States and in Europe. This is why it became so popular to begin with. And then people realized, oh, you can use it for acute things too. I have a class, a videotaped online self-paced class that you can click onto and look at yourself and study yourself. It's very simple. It's very basic so that you can understand how these remedies are used and for what. That's on my website. So if you want to study that yourself. It's made for a regular person. So you can understand exactly what I'm saying. I speak in very plain language. If you want to go there and take that course, it's only $49 for 3 modules. The first one is explaining homeopathic medicine and its history. The second of how it's been used in flus and colds for prevention and cure. And the third is everyday ailments like insomnia, bee stings, poison ivy, tick bites, so that you can have remedies yourself and how to use them. I tell you how to use them. Basic stuff, acute stuff, not chronic stuff, but basic stuff. So you have an understanding so that if you want to see a homeopathic practitioner, you can have at least some basis of understanding to do that. And it's self-paced. You can look at these modules many times as you want. It also comes with my private website, Healing Through Homeopathy, where you can download a copy of the remedies that I talk about, so you can have them on hand yourself and download it and tell you where to get them. So, and this to open you to explain it, so that if you have a chronic issue, you can see a homeopathic practitioner, understand kind of what you're getting into and what's involved. So,
Hey, thank you. That was a wealth of interest, I'll tell you. Thank you very much.
What is the name of that course, Mary?
It's called Healing Through Homeopathy, and it's on my website. It's right there on the front page, and you can click right on it. It'll take you right to the course itself, pay for the course. You get invited to my private website, and where I will answer your questions about homeopathy. That's why I have a private website. I'll answer your questions about homeopathy, about the course that you're taking and any questions you might have. So you also get that with it. You'll get me answering questions. So when you sign up for it, that's what you get.
I would like to ask the group if we couldn't schedule a group viewing of that course, and we could do it together. Would that be all right with you?
I'm not in charge of it's through my publisher that they provide this course. So it's not my private, I don't own it in that way. So it's,
Okay.
they are the ones who are in charge of that. So it goes through them. It goes through them. It doesn't go directly through me.
Cheryl
If payment goes through them, and I get a portion of that.
Okay.
So
Cheryl had 2 questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's go to Cheryl's question. She put them in chat. Let's see if I can find chat. Here we go. Am I remembering correctly that Jesus talked about weight? What did he say? There's the first question. The second question, how does one release the weight of the emotions? Is it from focusing on the light, or does it require focus on the baggage? And the third question, how do we locate a homeopathic practitioner in our area?
All great questions. Yes, the weight is from stuck emotions, usually. But of course, also it can be, some people have an inherited kind of body that tends to have weight more easily, and they have to exercise a lot, watch their diets a lot. But that's treating the whole person. But if you have issues, like if you have issues and you have traumas that you want to help to release them because they've kind of been running you a bit, that's when you want to see a homeopathic practitioner. Yes, you can. Now, finding a homeopathic practitioner, that's the hard part, because in the United States, they make it very difficult for homeopaths, and they will go at you and try to get rid of you. So it's been very difficult. In Europe, it's used, and around the world it's used. But in the United States, boy, they don't like homeopaths, and they want to wipe it out completely from the United States and from you having knowledge of it as well. So I would say, if you're interested, you can email me. You can always Google a homeopathic practitioner in your area. If you want me to recommend somebody, you can email me privately, and I will give you the name of someone that I use and who I studied with and who's one of my, in the classes. So you can email me and I will email that and you can check out her website and see if that's for you or not. And you can take my class to sort of educate yourself in the whole thing anyway, to know what kind of questions to ask a homeopathic practitioner. So I'm on the educational level. I don't take courses, cases anymore.
All right, Cheryl writes thanks in the chat. Anything else, Cheryl? All right, I don't see anything else. We can go to, let's try anyone else. Yeah, I see Ann. Would you come up and sit in the chair here so we can see you and hear you? Ann has a comment or a question.
I have two.
Diane,
Hi, how are you? Yeah, thank you so much
good.
for the speech. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. And the questions I have is first, my body is more sensitive to mosquito bite than average people. If in a room, I'm almost always the first person be bitten, and the swollen will, the it will take a little while for the swollen disappear. And just 2 or 3 days ago, I got a mosquito bite. That was more serious. Wow. It took 3 days, and after the second day, it was swollen big. About 10, 15 years ago, I went to North Carolina to have a camping. And those mosquitoes even worse. Oh, it's even worse. So my question for you is, first, is that homeopathy, can that help with people are more sensitive for the mosquito bite? And the second, for the functional medicine, they it's different than mainstream medicine for our physical exams. The functional medicine, they test the people's like hormone, like a DNA, or intestinal health. So I wonder that homeopathy has something related, like or even obesity people. They a lot of time their spleen or something, the metabolism, the sugar there, and there might have some. They think people, the reason some people have obesity is because their body have some germs, bacteria, or something. So I wonder. Or in the people, especially Asian, sick, or whatever, also have something to do with the intestine or the body. So I wonder the homeopathy can also have a correlation to help to treat people have in the either the intestine or some other parts of the things, because of bacteria, germs, so cause somebody that doesn't function well, have sicknesses or aging or decline, things like that. Yeah, that's all my question. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'll try to get to all of them. Yeah. Yes, some people are more sensitive to mosquito bites. Some people are more sensitive in general. They're very sensitive to everything. I'm one of those people too. And yes, homeopathy, but it's not just that particular issue. You have to treat the whole person. The whole person, it's not just a one-off. Well, give me a remedy from sensitivity for mosquito bites. It doesn't work like that. That's very Western medicine. But you have to look at the entire sensitivity of the person from a perspective of the wholeness of the mental, emotional, physical. And then that's what points to a remedy that can help with that oversensitivity of the being of the whole person. Because it can be different remedies for different people, depending upon who you are as a person. You see what I'm saying? Functional medicine, yeah, that can be very good as well. They do look at blood and everything. They look at it that more from sort of a Western medical kind of a thing, which is fine, And then some of them can also be good homeopaths, but that's not always the case. So, you sort of have to educate yourself on this. So functional medicine has its place. There's nothing wrong with diagnosis. It's just sometimes the type of treatment that you get from a diagnosis. You see what I'm saying? So you have to look at the whole thing, the whole thing. So, and in terms of obesity and the intestines, the mind and intestines are connected. So a lot of people, let's say, have colitis, and that has to do with, if you look at their childhood, you will find that they were very manipulated as children and very suppressed, ailments from suppression as a child, being very controlled, a very controlling parent. So they could never be themselves. They could never speak what they wanted to have, so that they're, it's very controlled, and they can experience it with having colitis, inflammation in the gut, where everything is just stuck. The emotions are stuck. They can't assimilate these ailments from this suppression or control, very controlling parents. So you could, if you look at the history, just look at the history, you go way back. That's why homeopathy does. It goes way back to their childhood. No Western medicine, they don't do that. You have colitis, so they're going to give you a drug for that. You have to look way, way back. Look at those ailments of being a child, and what it was like to grow up in that child where you could never exert your own will and had your will taken from you, and you can't assimilate anything. It's way too much. And that's when you have to, you have to look way, way back. So that's why taking a history in terms of a timeline from in utero all the way through your life, never was since events, that's what's special to homeopathic medicine. Does that answer your question? Okay. Did you have something else?
Yeah, like 10, 15 years ago, I have a probably period of time, probably a year and a half. So I was under more stress, and but after that, I lost 50% of my smell, and for mainstream medicine, people, when we lost our smelling, the things, have something to do with brain have damage. So I wonder whether homeopathy or functional based or whatever, alternative medicine or naturopath, or the things have something can be, the treatment can relate to this. And that's one question. Second is that, because I have a very, very limited retirement, the things, and also not before Medicare, I probably almost 20, 30 years, I didn't have any, after middle age, I never had any health insurance at all, but fortunately I'm close to the ARE, and also, use advocacy treatment, and also have some health food stores. So I was blessed, and also have some friends, they know that. But so I wonder, like, I totally agree with you, need to do thorough, have some, it's not a complicated, it's not a simple, the things, but I wonder how is those, the fee possibly the range, so that will be, the things, will that cost several thousand or more than several thousand or several hundred, or it's hard to say those total fee or treatment range, approximate range, fees of treatment could be, so that's my question. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. In terms of the smell, and yes, homeopathy can help with that, but again, it's part of a much larger symptom picture. It's not just one thing. It's just not just the smell. So again, that's more chronic, and therefore a chronic picture must be taken. Homeopaths do not take insurance. We are not part of the insurance system. In fact, they don't want us to be part of any system in the United States. So that's how it is here in the States. And yes, it can be costly. I think in taking a case, some homeopaths charge $400 just to take the case for, an hour and a half to 2 hours. But then that includes them finding the right remedy, which they'll have to study. And sometimes it'll include the first remedy. Follow-up appointments would be maybe $100, $150. It just depends upon the homeopath and what they charge. So there's no exact amount, but yes, it does cost money. You're right. It's not, in no way will insurance companies want to have homeopathy involved. Especially the remedies, they're from nature, they never expire. Remedies never expire because they're living consciousness. They're cheap, can't be patented, and that's why the money-making machine doesn't want homeopathy, and it's unfortunate, but that's the truth. I'm just saying how it is. Yeah,
Okay, thank you for that answer. Let's see if anyone else has a,
Kathy has a question.
okay,
I have an incurable disease. And I'm wondering, it's called inclusion body myositis, where I lose muscle. And it's very rare. Would homeopathic treatment do anything for it? There is no cure for it.
Well, basically, Western medicine is not curative. It's suppressive. It's material remedies cannot cure, but they can suppress. And that's why, let's say if you have blood pressure, you have to take high blood pressure medicine from an allopathic for the rest of your life because it keeps suppressing it. It doesn't cure it. There are no curative agents in material medicine. In homeopathy, it's a different system because it doesn't look to suppress on the material level. It looks to be curative on the consciousness-based level. Can homeopathy help? I don't know is the answer to that question, because you would have to have someone take your entire case to look at everything to see about that. So I can't honestly answer that question because I don't know is the truth. But you would have to have a conversation with a homeopath, and many times people are on drugs, material drugs, and sometimes those drugs can be so suppressive that the homeopathic remedy, which is bioenergetic based, gets sort of curtailed. But sometimes it can be helpful. So it just depends on the case. There's no quick answer for this, but you're
Okay, thank you very much.
welcome.
I enjoyed your talk because you're very clear.
Thank you. Well,
all right.
let me
let's-
tell you, divinity will make you clear. It'll clear out all the cobwebs from what I think I know, the ego, right? It'll clear out the cobwebs, and it's a very humbling experience to awaken to your own divinity. Is very humbling, but also very freeing.
Chuck has a
Anyone
question.
else? Yeah.
I enjoyed your presentation very much. I'm a retired physician and academics. And
Uh-oh.
after I left medicine, well, I had a voice speak to me when I was a teenager. It said, "Won't you come and work with me?" And so I majored in science and literature, went into the Peace Corps, served as a caseworker, then went to medical school. Ended up at the Veterans Hospital and multiple different levels of care, became a geriatrician, took over the hospice, went to the medical school, started geriatrics training, hospice training. So and then ran a near-death group out of Williamsburg for 5 or 6 years. Then was introduced to A Course in Miracles. And now I'm in 2 groups and then teaching a group. A Course in Miracles speaks very much in the voice of Jesus, which you were introduced to. And then I have struggled with Western medicine, with consciousness. There's the Galileo Commission that's got 100 different scientists and physicians who support consciousness as the basis of reality. There's a movement, but the vast majority of, when I would speak of spiritual things in an academic setting, I'd be talked down and told that there's no place in academia. So I've got a number of different questions. One is, how does this relate to Christian Science? I have a group of relatives that are Christian scientists. And then I have never actually worked with a guru or with a spiritual advisor, and I don't know. Maybe that's the next step that I need to do. But I've gotten to the point where I see the universal love. I see the limitations of Western medicine. But I haven't gone as far as you've gone into the homeopathic treatment, which is interesting. Well, can you take that as a series of questions? Start with Christian Science. What is
Christian Science, that's the belief that only Jesus can heal you, or the light can only heal you. Is that what that is?
I'm not sure. I don't.
I think that's right. But I mean, when you realize that homeopathic medicine is pure consciousness and it comes from nature, and the nature is created by divine consciousness, then there is no separation in that. And so there's this great Eastern teaching that in the Vedas, these great spiritual teachings, and in the Rig Veda, it is said that the plants were sent to earth first so that man may not suffer. So the realm of plants is, these are living beings here to serve humanity, and we are here to protect nature, but we don't. And to realize its divinity, not only in ourselves, but in nature. Because we don't experience it in ourselves, we don't experience it to nature, and therefore we are very destructive to nature, and it's killing us, essentially. So I don't know if I answered your questions, but good for you for reaching out. And I've been admonished by Western medicine all the time. It's just how it is. But there's a lot of fear involved in that particular practice. It's very fear-based. I mean, I have to use Western medicine. I use Western medicine too, as well as homeopathy. I didn't share this, but in the book, I'll talk about when I died of a massive heart attack in 2006. I speak about it in my book, and how this cardiologist surgeon saved my life. So yeah, you need both. You have a body. You gotta take care of this body. What are you gonna do? And so I use both, but I know when to use what, and I know the limitations of each. That's just being intelligent and knowledgeable. So you need both to have a balanced system, because we do have a physical body. I see a chiropractor myself, and you have this consciousness that feeds it and gives it life. That's the basis. So if we started that way to begin our life with this consciousness knowledge and with this system, we would need less of this Western medical system. And that's why it's kept out, because if we're sovereign beings, you can't control a sovereign being. If you're a sovereign being, who's going to control you? So they have to keep you stupid, and unaware and unawakened. Then they can control you from this fear-based level with greed and telling you, oh, it's that person who's stealing from me, so you have to go after them. Let's get rid of them. No, nothing is further from the truth.
I ordered your book, so I'll start my journey that way. Dick, back to you.
Thank you, Chuck.
I have a comment about Christian Science. Christian Science was by Mary Baker Eddy, and the key concept was that the body reflects what is believed by the mind. This concept was stated by Edgar Cayce. The mind is the builder. So what's in the mind is reflected in the body. The practice of quantum healing hypnosis technique uses this very concept, is that it's whatever it, and nothing is impossible unless you think it is impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And in the scriptures, the key verse is nothing is impossible with God, which the angel Gabriel told to Mary about how could I be pregnant if I haven't had intercourse with a man? And nothing is impossible with God. So especially this is important if somebody thinks they have an incurable disease. What they think is what will happen. They need to change the thoughts to, I have a curable disease, I just need to find the cure. Okay, that's what
Yeah,
my,
so that's very good. That's very good, Dick. And so essentially, homeopathy is sort of the gateway to the mind that helps to release the mind, because it's the consciousness that gets blocked by the mental traumas that are held. If they're processed out, well, then everything flows freely in consciousness. So homeopathy is right in alignment, essentially, with that statement. It's just that most people don't know that homeopathy, what it is exactly, and how it can be used to support humanity. You know, we're a complicated. It's everything. The holistic. Samuel Hahnemann, the father, the physician who created the system, said it's the holistic thing. It's the whole person you have to treat, not only what they think, which is very most important, but what they eat and how their relationships are and the work that they do. It's a holistic way of looking at everything.
yes, I had other questions and I want to make sure that we answer the questions that people ask first. Are there other questions or comments from anybody in the gallery on Zoom? Okay, you can be thinking about it. Anybody here in the room? Okay, I will ask a question then. Mary, Jesus touched your forehead and opened your third eye, and that seemed to be a beginning. And of course, it's important for us to ask. So if we ask, and that's an important part of our development, to become more aware and open the channels of communication with the spiritual realm through our third eye. If we can ask, I would recommend that. But yours happened well, you asked and then it happened. Is there any special reason why Jesus came to you where Jesus might not come to us so readily?
I really don't know, except that I was open because I was so distraught that my mind stopped. I could no longer think any more horrible thoughts. And when the mind stopped, so that seemed to open up a space. You know, like they say, that consciousness lives in the space between thoughts. And that space isn't empty. That's divinity itself, presence itself. So it's everywhere, but our minds, when we're stuck in our minds, we are not open to it. We're just stuck in thoughts. But when the mind stops, boom.
Right.
And
The
then
key word is open. You were open. Some people are just not open, and if their third eye were open, they just would close it up anyway because they couldn't accept what was being offered. Okay, that's good.
yeah. So
Next, here's an exercise. You were across from the dishwasher with another coworker, and the coworker looked into your eyes and felt the love energy that you were experiencing because it was transferred as if through the eyes. I wonder if people could look into your eyes at some time when you're into meditation and experience the same thing.
I don't know if some people do when I just talk about it, because I'm speaking to that which is in them. I'm speaking to divinity that lives in you. And just by speaking to it, and you're open to your own divinity, then you can have your own experience because it's in everybody, it's in all of us. I'm just speaking to it. And I have had people on podcasts who clearly were touched by me just speaking to it because they were open to owning it themselves. So that can happen that way.
I wonder if would you be willing to try that right now? I wonder if there's someone here in the audience who could do that, would be willing to.
I am speaking to it. So you don't need, I'm speaking to it right to you, to you, Dick, and right to everybody, because it belongs to all of us.
Let me take my glasses off.
These are my glasses. These are my eyes. These are my eyes, folks, and they're your eyes too. I'm looking at your divinity, and you're looking at mine. And it's born in silence.
Just savoring the feeling. Okay, we'll have to reflect on this. Thank you.
You're
Let me-
welcome.
Let me get to the next question. When you were still working with massage in your third year of the massage school, you'd already had an awakening. You felt did your clients experience something special during the times of your massage?
Yes, I had one in particular that was very amusing. I was working on this woman the first time I ever met her, and I was working on her back. And of course, when I work from that space of presence or meditation. And as I'm working on her, all of a sudden she sits straight up and she goes, "Oh my God, I'm God. Is this what you do?" Like in a very like accusatory way. "Is this what you do? Is this what you do?" And I said, "It's just what happens." You know? That was very amusing. But I usually have people who say that they experience a lot of light within them when I would work on them, or they would have messages from those who were departed that they were close to, or they'll have experiences of the light in them and the peace in them. Oh yeah, sure, because that's what we are. That's what we transmit when we're present to it. You know, and when I had the experience of self-realization, which I couldn't hold on to, by the way, I had to go back to the more suffering egoic world. But when I had that experience of self-realization in that time where I saw Jesus rising on the cloud, I thought, am I rising too? The words that came were, "Here is your divinity, the divinity that awaits all mankind. Your soul wants full expression now. This is the presence. This is the living presence. This is living. This is real."
All right, we want to spread your message and your energy and the energy of the light. Recently, we are promoting a group called Tidewater Lightworkers Association, and we're learning how we can best spread the message. You talked about when you looked into the eyes of the coworker washing dishes. We want to be able to do that. We want to look at your course that you mentioned, the healing from homeopathy, and we want to
through homeopathy, yeah.
we want to learn from that course. Is there anything else we can do to be effective as light workers?
Look inside yourself and trust that that's in you and call it forth. Own it, not as a separative, not as a separation, but as a oneness, not as an object subject. To know that you are the light that's housed in this vehicle. You are the light. And this light is omniscient. And this light is divine. You know, they say that a spark of the sun is still the sun. Same with us.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Any other comments?
Yeah, I have one short one, I hope.
Please go ahead.
When you talk about your eyes and how, I don't know what it is, I didn't understand it, but apparently it has some power. Now, would that compare with someone that is constantly in an aura? I've had so many people tell me, even people that don't believe in that kind of thing, says ever since I've been sitting here with you today, there's a white light all around you. So is that the same thing? And could that
Yes.
be contributed to healing you also?
Yes, it's all we are this light. Remember I said I saw the light hovering over everybody? Everybody carries this. It's just more people, it's just when you are aware of it, you're living in it, and people can experience that in themselves because they feel that. They're sort of seeing it in you, they're seeing it reflected back in them. And that's, you know, that's why be careful of the company you keep. Because that company that you keep, so this light is all one light. It's all light. It's light everywhere, 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 all the time. All the time. You just don't have eyes to see it. Okay. But when you have eyes to see it and you own it, and then you know, you see it in the light and the baby's eyes. When you look at a baby's eyes, because they're just so pure, you look in a baby's eyes and wow, you just feel healed, right? Because it's so pure, that light, that, you know, the light comes through your eyes. The light comes through your eyes. The light of divinity comes through your eyes. They call it the light of the soul, you know. Comes through the eyes. But it's throughout our entire being. We are the light. We are it. This is what we have to share with each other, that truth of oneness. Not object subject. Not God out there and I'm here. No. One. Just one. One divine light consciousness. Here is your divinity, the divinity that awaits all mankind. If we want it.
You have a lot of information. Thank you.
Have an experience. The heck with the information.
That's what we want to do. We all want to move, have that experience and learn from it, and then share it with others. Any
That's
other
right.
questions or comments? Well, this has been recorded to my Zoom cloud, and it will become available to everybody. All I have to have is your email address, and I have everybody's email address, except I'm not sure I have Peggy's email address. So if you want to communicate with me, it's at richardadingus@aol.com. DINGES, richardadingus@aol.com. Any last questions or comments?
Just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your company. Your
Okay,
divine company, for sure.
right. Are we ready to say goodbye? All right, goodbye for now.
Bye, everybody.
We'll all experience one another's presence in consciousness.
That's right.